Ambassador, thank you for joining us in Sittel.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be back.
Yesterday, after 10 hours of debate, the EU Council made a decision to give Macedonia a conditional date for starting the negotiations with the European Union in June 2019. This decision was interpreted differently. What does it really mean?
Well, it means that for the first time, member states took a position on the recommendation of European Commission to start negotiations. You did have like 9 recommendations in the past, but member states never took a position. For the first time, there was a unanimity of the member states to set a date for starting negotiations, as well as to set the path, the steps that are needed to come to June 2019. At the same time, all this will allow Commission to start preparing everything needed to open negotiations. It will also allow your institutions to get ready for next June. So I think, all in all, it is a positive decision. Member states also recognize all the progress done by the country in moving forward toward European reforms. I think they especially appreciate it and responded positively, as it says, to the increased transparency, to the commitment to reforms, to reversing the backsliding of the country, to strengthening democracy and the rule of law, and to reaching out to neighbors. So there's a lot of commending in the report, of a lot of recognition by member states, which I think is also for the first time, and I think is probably the best report that you've received from member states, the best recognition from member states about the road that you're going. I mean, so it's a confirmation you're the right road, and at the same time, commitment from our side that in June 2019, member states will take a decision to open negotiations. At the same time, of course, also asking from you to continue, maintain and deepen the reforms so that this will enable the member states to take a decision next year.
Countries like Holland, like France and Denmark were against the immediate start of negotiations with Macedonia, or setting a clear date for starting the negotiations. Is there any guarantee that in June 2019 Macedonia will start the negotiations?
Well, I think there is a commitment for the first time from member states to open negotiations. There is a commitment with a date that in June 2019 members are ready to open negotiations. And I think it's black and white by member states. And I think we'll live up to this commitment, provided that also on your side you do all the reforms that are required, all the reforms that you've been doing already and that are mentioned in the conclusion, especially reforms on, of course, the rule of law, always, public administration reform, and intelligence reform. These are like the ones that are mentioned, but in general, reforms in all areas are expected. But there is a commitment. This is, as I said, the first time that member states took a position on a recommendation of the European Commission.
The critics would say that Macedonia in the upcoming year would make constitutional changes, change the name, implementing the name deal with Greece, but still it's not going to be clear whether the integration path is going to be opened in June 2019.
I think these conclusions are already making it clear that this is happening. I think you've been stuck for, 9 years on the same place. Recommendations were coming, you didn't move. So one could say your train was getting rusty because it was staying on the same place. I think you're moving now. With these conclusions, your train is moving toward European Union. Because the member states agreed that next June they will open negotiations with your country, provided, of course, that the reforms continue.
A day before yesterday's meeting, Minister of Foreign Affairs Dimitrov was here for an interview, and he said that he hopes for such a decision that will not require some future EU Council to decide again on the Macedonian issue and on the Macedonian integration. Today the government is celebrating yesterday's decision. Does it seem contradictory to you?
No, I think it's good that that the government is, not only the government, I think everybody should be satisfied with this conclusion, because it does move the country from the station where it was stuck. It's moving on. It's moving forward. So that's a good news. It's for the first time, I'm repeating myself, but it's really important that for the first time member states decided about opening negotiations. Yes, they didn't say it now, they said in June 2019, but I think there's a lot of preparatory work that needs to be done for the country to be able to open negotiations on our side, on the European Commission, as well as on the side of the country. So I think this will have to use the time quite wisely to get ready on time for June, so that on June we are ready to start. So it is something to celebrate, maybe for one day, but then I think it's time to go back to work, because there's still a lot of work to be done.
Four main conditions were mentioned: implementation of the name deal, implementation of the urgent reform agenda, a positive recommendation by the European Commission, and a final positive decision made by the by the Council of the EU. What are the concrete steps that the European Union expects from the government in Macedonia?
You know, the conclusions are really very positive about what was done in this country in the past year, about the reforms that were done by all institutions, the parliament, the government, of course, the opposition included in several of the measures. This is recognized. They recognize also this dialogue of the culture of dialogue that is returning, dialogue towards civil society, dialogue toward opposition. This is all recognized. What we expect is that this continues, so that reforms continue and also deepen. And especially that we see implementation of some of the reforms, especially in the rule of law, in judiciary. You know, rule of law will be the main, it's always the main topic in all negotiations, so that's where we want to see implementation of several laws, implementation of judicial strategy. I think there is no new conditionality, there's nothing exceptional that is being required, simply to follow on reforms that the government and the country is committed already to.
You mentioned in your perspective and the EU perspective this is a very positive step, but still there was some disappointment with some people here in Macedonia. Do you think that yesterday's decisions could affect the referendum vote?
Well, for a referendum, if there is a referendum
on the name issue.
On the name issue, yes. It's for people who will decide. But again, yesterday, member states did set a date to open negotiations and the path leading there. So the referendum will be also about European future. So we hope it's going to go well. And we hope that these decisions will affect positively, so that people will see their future in the European Union, and they will see that this future is coming much closer.
Ambassador, thank you for being with us tonight at Sittel Newscast.
Thank you very much.